Yeah, it wasn't much of a tape, you know.
Good evening. The regular meeting of the Bellflower City Council, acting on behalf of the successor agency to the dissolved Bellflower Redevelopment Agency and Bellflower Financing Authority, is called to order on Monday, September 10, 2018 at 7 p.m. We're back into open session, and there are no reportable actions coming out of the closed session for this evening. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Coops?
Here.
Councilmember Schnableger?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Santinez?
Here.
Councilmember Garza?
Here.
Mayor Dutton?
I'll entertain a motion to excuse the absence of Mayor Dunn.
I'd move the excuse of Mr. Dutton.
Second.
On motion by Councilmember Coops, seconded by Councilmember Garza. Without objection, that will be the order. Tonight's invocation will be led by Councilmember Dan Coops, and the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by P.J. Milana, our Director of Parks and Recreation. Please rise.
Let's all bow for a word of prayer. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening hour to give you the gift, thanks for all the gifts you've given us. Please be with us as we continue to discuss city items before us. Give us the knowledge to do what is fair and right. Be with those that would protect us, our firefighters and our law enforcement, and of course those that protect our nation throughout the world. Be with us throughout the evening and bless us. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please place your right hand over your heart and join with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dan and PJ. Public comments, Mr. Stewart.
This is the time set aside for the public to address the City Council on matters not listed on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the City Council should come to the podium, be recognized by the mayor, and state your name for the record. If you wish to address the City Council on an agenda item, you may do so by approaching the podium as we review that particular item. You'll be given a reasonable amount of time to address the City Council.
And now I would like to speak on a non-agenda item for this evening.
I usually wait till the rest of the audience, give them the first chance to speak, you know, but I didn't see nobody getting up.
You're first.
Hi,
Okay,
Joe. Good evening, Joe.
So I'm usually the last to give them a chance. So I come tonight to bring you a matter that should come to your attention as a city council. Saturday night, September 8, 2018, I was preparing to go to sleep in the back portion of my house at about 11 p.m. and kept hearing this loud music and voice booming out in the backyard from a northerly direction. It was amplifying all around our local area houses, south, north, east, and west. I thought it was coming from my neighbor's care facility next door at 13638 and 13640 Clark, where they have two dwellings housing 12 patients, 6 in the front house, 6 in the back house. And I thought maybe a caretaker was playing his car radio out back. A 6-foot block wall blocked my view to make sure, but that's what it sounded like so close. I was concerned for the 12 patients being exposed to this disturbance for their well-being and health, because some of them cannot even speak up due to the condition of their health. So at 11:15 p.m., I called the Lakewood Sheriff Station to voice my concerns, and the responder said he'd send one out in about 10-15 minutes, which happened. 10 or 15 minutes showed up. A unit came by on the west side of Clark before Gardendale and made a U-turn facing north and stopped in the number 2 lane as cars filled up the parking spaces along the curb with his overhead light flashing, and he stayed there for about 10 minutes, no one getting out to check anything, and then drove away heading south, probably going back to the Lakewood Station. It appeared from my vantage point that unit had parked in front of 136-3830 Clark Avenue driveway. This is important to remember as it ties in with what I had found out later when I walked out on sidewalk in northerly direction and checked for myself. So I waited, listening all the while, for about 10 minutes to hear if music would stop. It did not stop, so I called a second dispatcher. A lady answered, and I told her about this noise problem in our neighborhood near midnight and my concern for patients at 136 at the care facility next door to me. And she said she would try to get a unit out there again, all the while saying their units are pretty busy with priority calls on a Saturday night, which I understand. And I should go to the next city council meeting and tell you guys up there, you guys ought to hire more deputies for a response. I replied back to her that the units would have to do a better job from what I saw and told her about my first unit responder, what happened on the street there. My common sense, I think, in reporting to disturbance calls in the neighborhood would be to park in the street driveway area or in that guy's driveway area and get out of the car, physically investigate to find source, and proceed accordingly. Cease and desist or a citation for offenders to solve the problem, especially at that late hour of night. Neighbors south of me at 13714 Clark came by as I was standing out on the sidewalk waiting for a second unit to respond. And they were accompanying some friends to their car, which was parked up north between them and Hoback. And they said they heard a noise at their house too, and told me it was not coming from my neighbor next door, but further north, which would be 13630, the place where the sheriff unit number 1 responded, parked out in front of their driveway. I walked down to see for myself the third house from my residence north, and I observed several cars parked on the front lawn, clear driveway to the garage and back, lighted up real good, and 4 or 5 guys sitting around on the chair playing instruments, making loud songs. One could not help but see, even from the street, that a party was going on from the cars being on the lawn and visual sight along back of that driveway at 13630 Clark. I went out to curb to see the house number, walked back home and gave up because I thought no second unit will ever show up, and I wasn't going to stay up past midnight to see. While doing so, I observed a guy coming from there carrying bulky items to his car, which was parked on the west side of Clark, 2 houses past Gardendale north, and unit number 2 never did show up while I was outside all that time. So I called the watch commander at the Lakewood Sheriff Station, and we had a nice chat about the noise and other things of interest to both of us. He was very understanding in our conversation. As second dispatcher told me a couple of times, go to your city council meeting and tell them to hire more deputies for Bellflower. That's why I'm here tonight. You guys are supposed to hire more deputies. But that ain't what I want you guys to do. I want you to get more value for your buck, not hire more deputies. I want the guys that come out do their job right. If I got to tell them how to do it even. Okay, how many deputies do we have under contract for the city of Bellflower? Do we contract for it? How many deputies do we have?
40.
Because I don't think we're getting our money's worth value in service by the sheriff's department. This follows a comment I made several months ago when I spoke about a deputy sitting out in a lounge area near the planning department while a city council meeting was going on in the chamber. I don't know what he was doing out there, protecting the audience and council members from any possible harm, sitting out there all alone, no one around except somebody going to the restrooms at times, like me. That was the first time I ever observed no protection and not getting full value for money spent on same in our city. We don't need lip service from higher ups in command positions We need active deputy presence in chambers, not in lounge area, and for deputies to get out of cars and physically check noise disturbance calls, especially late at night when people want to sleep peacefully. Because I believe we have a rule, it used to be at 10 o'clock that your party had to quit before, but I believe you guys might have jacked it up to 11 now, that all parties got to break, cease and desist noise at night. What is the deadline now? 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock? It used to be
Mr.
10 when I
Hoffman?
was up there.
10 o'clock is a guideline. After 10, it starts to get a little dicey, a little less tolerant. However, as you know, lots of parties do go on. The one ordinance that we have that can come to bear is if a deputy says to quiet down and makes note of that with a warning citation and then has to come back later for the same party, for the same call, they can be fined for the time that the deputy expended. That's a party ordinance that we have. It doesn't always get enforced, but it's a tool.
Well, I don't see how he could find out anything sitting in his car in the second lane of the road, flashing his light and looking down that driveway, looking at that house. Evidently, he didn't see what I seen. You could see it from the street, down that driveway, them guys on the back garage plunking away and loud music and voice, songs. And so at budget time, don't be too easily swayed into getting more deputies or giving them more money on the contract easily. But get more work or response, better response from those that we do hire for all the people in Bellflower. Thank you for all the people's needs. And this isn't the first time. There was a danger before, too. When I came up here last year, there was a guy, I was calling for the homeless. There was a guy parties parked at the 99-cent store at Clark and Rosecrans, sleeping overnight. And I happened to go to the next morning, and I see these people sleeping in their car, and their front tire is slashed and flat. And they said a guy came up there with a knife and punctured the tires. So I called the deputy out at the sheriff's station. It took them 2 hours and they still didn't come out. So I walked back home, and I called again 2 hours later, and a unit responded then in about 15 minutes. And they didn't seem too concerned because the people were homeless. But in that car was a gentleman, a woman, and an elderly lady in a wheelchair. They were sleeping in that car for the night. Now, the fact that there's a guy running around with a knife loose in the neighborhood, to me, it represented a danger to them people in that car and anybody else around that area, maybe.
Mr.
Who knows what that
Mr.
guy was gonna do
Stebetko,
with
can
a
you wrap
knife?
up your comments, because we have a lot of audience here who may like to speak, and we don't want here to be until midnight, okay? If you have any specific question, I would advise you to see Mr. Hoffman out in the lobby.
Well, I'm bringing this here so the audience and the rest of the people know.
I think
If I tell him, he's the only one that knows.
we've heard
I'm
about
voicing
it
my
already.
concerns
We've
up
heard
here.
about it already, sir, okay?
And I'm bringing it to all your attention so everybody knows.
We've heard about it already. Thank you.
Well, to me, that's another example about the sheriff's department. If you think I'm picking on the sheriff's department and don't like them at all, you're wrong there. Because I used to be a cop myself a long time ago, in the military. So I feel like I should have a right to speak here. I don't come here every weekend and take up your time.
We
You
heard
guys
you.
you guys ain't overworked.
We heard you already, okay?
So let me get my 2 cents.
Please wrap it
with
up,
the
okay? Thank you.
Reasonable time. You're questioning it.
Go ahead, wrap it up so that we can move on.
Well, it so happens that that is another concern. I mean, with that knife incident. So when it comes time to bargain with the sheriff's department, don't be so doggone easy giving into their demands, because we should get better action for a dollar spent for all the citizens and people in Bellflower, even the homeless. They count too. They're human. That's all I got to say tonight.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Peter?
Hey, Joe, I have a question. How's the park patrol going as far as kicking people out of the park?
Mr. Hockman?
A couple, long.
We've been just shy of 3 weeks, and we have some good reports in terms of the logs that they send in and people that they encounter and deal with. We haven't had any complaints. We have, again, removed a number of people from the park that were there after hours. Most of the people that were involved were either young people and couples, if you will. There's also a number of other teenagers and older adults that were just kind of loitering and being in there that, you know, not sure what they were up to, but they were all cooperative in leaving, and so that was a good thing. We did find somebody in distress, and the guard was able to call and get support for that person who was taken into care. So
Okay.
I would think when we summarize our results after this week, there'll be some good results.
Because I know there's a Supreme Court ruling recently that you can't really kick anybody off public land as long as you don't have housing. If you heard about it, a couple
Yeah, the
things?
Ninth Circuit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, okay. Are we gonna, because what Mr. Butts, are we gonna do what the LA City Council meeting is thinking about, which you, if you engage in the outburst, they kick you out for 3 days or 3 meetings? It's the news actually, because they're trying to deal with people who just go after people in the city council.
Well, if you don't have an outburst, we're not going to have to consider it.
Yeah, I know, but you know what I mean, after what Mr. Butts did, that's the thing.
Okay.
And
Mr. Hockman is fine. It's fine.
Well, so I looked at the close. So Serrano is, so one of the projects I know you took a trip. So whatever they had projects, you impressed to the point you're selling the Greek market to now. Because
What was the question?
in closed session, the surrounding development, you're in price and terms as.
There's no reportable action on that.
But
We'll talk further as
Okay.
progress goes.
That's why it's closed session at this point. So until
I
we make
know.
a decision, then
well, I mean,
still
enough to the point where you're negotiating price and terms, but not necessarily.
nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening,
Vote
Carla.
Mayor, City Council, Carla Mitchell. I have a couple announcements from the Bellflower Chamber of Commerce. On October 18th, my CBD hub will be hosting a ribbon cutting. The chamber will be hosting a ribbon cutting for my CBD hub at 17045 Bellflower Boulevard at 4 p.m. And also just a reminder that we do have, hosted by the City of Bellflower and Bellflower Lions Club will be a car show. The 20th Annual Bellflower Boulevard Car Show, Saturday, September 29th, 2018, from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. There'll be live music, T-shirts, opportunity to win and view Chevrolets. I came today with a couple of announcements on Jerron Green. If you recall, him and his mother and brother were up here.
Correct. Mhm.
Okay, so he went to court. I attended court with him in the city of Compton, and they gave him a letter. He did not see a judge. They gave him a letter stating that the office confirms that they declined to file charges at this time. This is an open-ended letter. They still have 1 year, as we were told, to file charges against Jerron. This is affecting his job status. He works as a security guard. He carries a firearm. What they arrested and detained him for was his baton, which they did return to him. However, they still are leaving this open-ended letter. He has his proof of appearance. He has to spend more money to get a bond exoneration. They posted bail, $1,500. They paid Trotman's tow, because they towed his vehicle, and they're out of a lot of expenses. He also went to, he's been speaking with Officer Milliman, I think it is, that has been working with him, and Joe Hoffman's office. They advised him to go over to the sheriff station at Lakewood, and he was asking for a petition to seal and destroy his arrest record, the only one he's ever had, and it was denied by our Lakewood sheriff. So they have nothing they're holding him on, but they're still leaving it open-ended to go back and file against him. And as a result of that, he's not able to work.
Okay.
And especially with him trying to work in the capacity of becoming a law enforcement officer. So I don't know how this matter can get resolved or if he can get any assistance thereof.
Are they exploring any appeals process within the sheriff's department?
Well, they're saying, quote, that the sheriff's not filing
Okay.
against him, but they're not taking it away either. They're,
Right.
it's the DA that files, but they have the option to produce evidence, the sheriff department, and file on him within a year, correct?
I don't know that to be true, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's true.
Okay, so,
Well, that's why I was asking if there's some kind of appeals mechanism for for the family to go to in the sheriff's department.
right, well, we've already attempted that, so now the family is considering filing a lawsuit. And I was just hoping that this is pretty ridiculous at this point. Do they have to go through all of that? So I'm standing here to speak on the behalf of me knowing him and the fact that he does work for me. He also works for Securitas. And this is affecting his relationship to work as a security officer carrying a firearm.
I understand. But is there anything we can do as a city council, as a city?
To the best of my knowledge, this is completely out of the hands of the sheriff's department. It's in the hands of the DA, correct? So I don't know that the city has any influence over what the DA is going to do or not. And the reason I believe the DA holds that up is in case there's another arrest or maybe something later. That's the reason they always say that. I think it's pretty standard language, and I don't think it's much of a thing. And frankly, I mean, well, I don't want to get into that. The short answer is I don't think we have any jurisdiction in this at all anymore.
So there's nothing we can do at this
Yeah, I
point,
don't
or we
believe so,
can
yeah.
influence or pressure the sheriff's department at this time?
It's the
Okay.
DA that
Yeah.
files, but it's also, the onus is on the sheriff department as well.
I don't think so.
That's what, everyone's pushing,
I don't think so. I think that the sheriff's department is not pursuing a case right now, so it's dead in the water and won't pursue the case. It's fully up to the DA, and that's where the letter came from, is the DA, correct? I'm asking.
correct. Yes,
Okay.
that letter,
Well, that's
that
where
letter
it's
came
at.
from the DA.
So, I mean,
They pushed it back to the sheriff, and the sheriff could sign this petition to remove it.
Carla, why don't you bring the letter to me? Just bring it to me.
Okay,
Yeah,
I will bring you
yeah,
a letter.
yeah.
I
So-
do have some other questions on the Amendment 813 that I did speak with Mr. Hoffman about, and I just wanted to address some things. to City
Which
Council.
which item is this? Is it
This is on item
on the
DB.
agenda? Could
Yes,
you
it's
wait
on
for
the
that?
agenda.
Could you
I
wait
can
for that?
wait.
Sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right, thank
Okay.
you.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes,
if I
Mr.
can
Garza.
just ask a question. So I'm not sure who this question would be appropriate to, but in terms of the question on the striking or removing from the record, can we get clarity on the circumstances as to why something wouldn't be, I'm not saying in this particular case, but in general, why something wouldn't be removed from the record if that's within the jurisdiction of the Sheriff's Department?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to comment on the
Okay.
specific case for sure, certainly not in public.
I'm sure our city attorney can comment on that.
My advice, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and the city council, is this is beyond the subject matter of jurisdiction of the city. This
Yeah.
is a criminal case. The sheriff's department refers it to the district attorney's office. It's up to the district attorney whether or not to prosecute. The statute of limitations for any violations of the penal code is 1 year for misdemeanors. And once upon a time, a long time ago, I worked in the DA's office, and they just do that as a matter of routine. Say, we're not doing anything at this time. If anything further shows up the next year, we will reconsider. But in terms of anything beyond that, I suppose the family could try to get themselves private legal counsel and go through a process, but that's really far beyond anything that any of us can do.
Right. And I understand that, and thank you. However, what they're charged him with, they returned. They charged him with a possession of a baton, which he had clear licenses to carry. They returned it to him and his licenses, but yet they're leaving this open and won't strike the arrest from his record. And it was a traffic infraction. He should have got a traffic ticket, but he was arrested for a baton that he was licensed to have in his possession, which was in the trunk of his car, and you won't strike it.
So,
Thank you.
just to get
Okay.
clarity, Mr. City Attorney, so the recommendation is that, at least for us up here, that we let the jurisdictional process play out and within the Sheriff's Department and District Attorney's arena?
Yeah,
In
this
this
is not a
matter?
municipal code violation. This is a potential.
Just want to get clarity.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garza. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm not very good at this. This is my first time. I'm a resident of Bellflower.
Okay,
and,
can you sign in, please, and state your
My name
name?
is Olga Leyva.
Olga Leyva, okay.
I'm not ready, I'm sorry, and I'm not very good at public speaking, but I've been living there for 25 years, and in 25 years have I not ever seen an incident for the last 3 weekends ago, which was on Sundays, which is our parties in the park. And
You're
here,
talking
gentlemen-
about Thompson Park?
Yeah, Thompson
Okay.
Park. The gentleman right here, I forget your name, I'm sorry.
Joel.
Joel, you gave me a call and you left a message, but I just want to get more clarity on the issue. And like, I was talking to my husband and we were talking about how if we had an emergency that was more than that emergency, you know, more, how do you say it? That a more dangerous situation like what we had that day. What would there be a backup plan? Because, you know, what if something worse was
Can you
gonna
address
happen?
the council?
I'm sorry, this
Okay.
is my first time, like I told
All
you,
right.
just bear with me. So what, in
Address
that
the question
instance,
to me.
what would happen if there was an emergency and there was no backup plan to protect the citizens?
Okay.
Which is almost what happened that day. It almost got totally out of control.
Okay.
Well, it got out of control.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, gunshots, fights, smoking marijuana, there was liquor, alcohol.
Hold on, Mr. Stu, hold on. Is there anyone else who would like to speak
Yes.
about that item? Because I think what needs to be
Yeah,
done, I
like
think
I said,
is.
nobody's ready.
Hold on, is for us to hear from them and then let Joel make a report later on.
You guys wanna come up?
Okay? All right.
Thank you for your
We would
time.
like to hear your comments, please.
No, I was very concerned because we were in awe. I've never seen anything like this happen. And
Okay.
how much of a population do you let people come to the park? I mean, is there a limit for how many people can come and have those kinds of parties? They had loud music, they had a food truck, they were knocking on my neighbor's door asking to use her restroom. They threatened to beat the hell out of her in front of her kids. They left trash in front of our houses. One lady almost ran me over, and there was a stop sign, and the sheriff was there, and I understand you guys were not, you know, ready enough for an emergency like that. But what if there was to be something worse than that? Our safety would be jeopardized. That's my only concern.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I hear. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Fernando Goncalves.
Please sign in and state your name for the record, so at least.
My name is Fernando Goncalves. And again, I'm also a resident on the 9600 block of Arthurdale. And it's been already like 3 weekends that they've had these meetings, and I believe, from what I saw, they're gang baseball games. So from what I saw, it was a bunch of like purple gang, they're all wearing all purple, which I believe would be like Grape Street Watts, and the other one was like the Crips, that were all wearing blue. So it was about 400 individuals having a baseball game, out of control, barbecuing, parked in the middle of the street, motorcycles on the sidewalk, loud music, trash everywhere, people urinating all over the sidewalk, all over the trees in front of our neighbors' houses. There was a lady urinating. I'm outside with my family. We're washing our bikes to clean up, to go have a trip, and I have a lady in front of my house urinating in the middle of the street. My wife looked that way. The other lady started threatening her. What are you looking at? You know, stop being nosy, threatening me in front of my kids, in front of my family. And there's cars driving up and down the street, blaring the music, driving fast, you know, exaggerating speed. And it was out of control. We called the police. And number one, At first, we got a couple patrols came by and we thought, okay, it's over. And they drove by, and it looks like they drove by, they showed their presence, and then they disappeared. And then once that happened, it got even more out of control. At this point, they have a lunch truck in the middle of the street. They're blocking the streets. None of my neighbors can get through. We can't even get through to our homes. You got people dancing, you got women.
And the street is Arthurdale?
Arthurdale, on the street,
okay.
in Arthurdale in front of in Thompson Park, right in the cul-de-sac. You got women dancing in their underwear. You got guys with Hennessy bottles all over the place, drinking, loud music. They're dancing in the middle of the street. All the women are out there twerking. It was really bad. And not only that, it's just really embarrassing. And it doesn't make you feel safe at home. My kids couldn't go outside. We're all inside. Most of my neighbors didn't want to come out because you're avoiding getting an altercation with one person from a gang of 200 or 300 people. So you can't even say anything because you're in risk of, they know where you live. We called the police a second time. Most of our neighbors, we even got together at one of the homes, and we all started calling the police. I asked for police. I said, okay, we already got a call, we're on it. No one ever showed up. An hour later, I called again, I asked for the commanding officer. And they gave me another gentleman. I don't even think it was a commanding officer because me and my other neighbor were speaking to the commanding officer at the same time. Because we couldn't get no results. I mean, at this point, I was actually Googling, when the cops don't respond to your call, what do you do? Because at this point, like, who do you call, the National Guard? But it was an out-of-control situation, and things could happen that at any point. We've already had the weekend before where they had a gunfire, and then again, the same thing. And now they know that you can't do anything, so it just gets worse and worse. And I think what we experience is, like, we couldn't control the situation in the city. And at this point, it's like, do we protect ourselves? Like, what does this come to? Because I don't feel comfortable in my block. If this continues, I'm going to consider selling and moving out of the city because I love my block. It's a clean block. And then the next day in the morning, finally they send like 3 cop cars and everyone just drives away. There's people drunk, obviously, driving out of there drunk, driving fast, and no one's getting pulled over. Nobody's getting arrested. It's just like, hey, come on, shoot. People are complaining, but no one's getting arrested. Everyone's breaking the law clearly. So the next day, if you see the pictures that my wife and everyone else posted, you'll see there was like skirts, Hennessy bottles, underwear on the floor, trash everywhere. I mean, it looked like I think alley in downtown LA looked better than the Marriott block looked.
Okay, all right.
It was just a horrible thing. And my concern is, so what happens next time when there's actually a gunfight? There's actually like mayhem in the middle of the street. I mean, are we just supposed to sit in our house and wait for God? And that's my concern.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak about the incident in Thompson Park?
It's my first time here too. My name is Maria Morales, and I live right in the corner of my neighbors. We all live in the same corner, across the street from Thompson Park. It was September 2nd. I was told 3 weekends ago they've had the same thing, but it grew bigger because no one does anything. As a matter of fact, I did see police officers, and I'm not against them because I have brothers that are in the police force, just retired. But I went up to one of them, and I said, it's very scary. They actually took over the neighborhood. This way, and they were parked all over, and they were cussing. They had told my girlfriend, I had my mom out there, what are you effing, what are you looking at? They told that to them. They were peeing. It was a very, very scary, out of control. And no one did anything. Here, this poor gentleman is trying to get to work. They're more concerned about a baton when you got a bunch of gangs that can go and kill people, shoot people. There's no concern on that. And there was 4 police SUVs. The cars were racing. There's a little dip where I live. They were just skidding to that dip. And it's very scary. There's nothing nobody can do. And that's, where's the money going to? As far as, if something happens, who do we call? No, I want you to tell me. I want you to tell me, who do we call?
We will respond to that, okay?
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay. Mr. Hockman, can you give us a report on that incident?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Very frustrating day, and I feel for all the residents. It was ugly. And what we think we are dealing with is, you've heard the term flash mob in the past, where people just run into a mall and create mayhem and overwhelm the resources. We seem to have a version of that. We believe this is part of a semi-organized group in Southern and actually Northern California, inner city type folks, where certain organizations, foundations will actually provide money to try to get these people to play together softball rather than fight on the streets. Sort of a way of, can we get along kind of a thing. There's funding behind it. That's where your food trucks come from, and we don't believe there's a lot of announcement in advance of the schedule because they don't often follow the rules of the facilities. They couldn't get a permit to do the things that they're doing. So just prior to arriving at a location, we believe there's some sort of a post, a social media post that then says, let's all go here, bam, and they all just go. The last Sunday was the largest of this event that I've heard of in the region. We do hear that they have gone to other parks in other cities and done this kind of thing, sort of rotating around almost randomly. As a result of last Sunday, we made the plan for the next at least few Sundays to bolster up these resources on Sunday afternoon, evening with the sheriff and city, so we can be there if it were to begin again. We can be there early and help to prevent the neighborhood from going through the problems that you encountered last time, the unfortunate problems. It was a little overwhelming, though we had sheriffs coming and going throughout the time, and there were some tickets and there were a tow, at least that I'm aware of. It wasn't enough, and it wasn't early enough. And that's what we want to do by scheduling in advance extra resources to be there. And you may have noticed those last Sunday, we had that in place. We actually had our own Lieutenant Milliman working watch commander position at Lakewood Station to be aware of that, and he could bring to bear other teams from other cities, sheriff's resources to pull in if it gets out of hand again or enters the realm of violence. So there are resources available. It's still the right answer. The Sheriff's Department is still the right answer. It's just this was pretty darn unusual, and although there was some evidence of this in the past, we didn't know we had a pattern. And we do believe we have to deal with it as a pattern now, be in advance of it, have everybody in place, and let's see if we can, again, keep the neighborhood from having to deal with that ever again. That's the plan.
I'm really sorry for what had happened to you in your neighborhood, because right after the incident happened, I got phone calls from some of my friends in the area, and so I called our city manager right away, so they were on top of it. One thing that I'd like you to address, Joel, is one of the questions earlier. Should there be a significant violence that what is the response from the Sheriff's Department?
Right. One of the great advantages of having a Sheriff's Department versus a PD is when something really, really big goes down, I mean, guns are fired and so on, you can get a huge response from neighboring cities. We all work together. We go and assist other cities. They come in and out of Bellflower.
What that
and you
means
can
is
have 30 units.
You're meaning additional deputies.
Right. You can have 30 additional deputy units showing up in minutes if that's what's called for. And while that didn't occur at the level of these issues that took place that Sunday, we have been certainly privy to seeing those times where it does happen and there's a shooting. And it's a pretty impressive role from a number of cities in our area, those extra units that can roll in.
So I just want to reiterate, kind of assure you that because we're using the largest sheriff's department in the country, the LA County Sheriff's Department, they have a lot of resources that we can pull from should there be a major incident in a park like that. So because we contract with, the Sheriff's Department contract with different cities, many cities in LA County, so they can easily move resources from wherever they are to where the action is if it happens to be in Bellflower. One other question, Joel, is what are we doing to monitor potential reoccurrence of this incident? Are we monitoring social media? Are we tracking this group to make sure that if ever they would occur, we know it in advance?
Mm-hmm. Right, a number of city staff members, Parks and Rec, Public Safety, as well as some sheriff's resources have been looking online to see what they can do to identify if there's a schedule, who to talk to about it. We've made phone calls, and the phone numbers don't seem to work. No answering machine, no answer. And we've not yet come up with any sort of definitive schedule that's publicly available, though. So the Sheriff's Department does have a social media unit that works at the headquarters. They're constantly researching social media in general for all sorts of problems, not just Bellflower, but the whole of Southern California. So there are efforts made to try to identify that. As of yet, we don't have any definitive schedule of when they might come. So for the next few Sundays, we're planning on being there in advance, and if they come or they don't, we're there already.
Okay. All right. Any other things you may want to add in terms of addressing their questions?
And certainly the motive or the mission would be to, at a minimum, we're going to be enforcing the laws that we can enforce with extra resources, and also to just send a message that this is not a convenient place to come and behave that way. We don't expect that of our regular patrons to the parks, and so we don't expect it from others that come from other communities outside of Bellflower.
How many extra deputies do you have on patrol?
We have 2 extra units to start with, a city unit. We have identified units in the neighboring cities that we're going to pull in if indeed it goes, again, that direction. So we feel like we can be early and significant in terms of our response.
Ma'am, you spoke already? Oh, hold on. Let the others who would like to speak. Want to give them the chance first? On this incident. You want to come up here? Ma'am, hold on, ma'am. You spoke already. The young man, come up here, sir. Let's give the others a chance first, okay?
I don't live on the block, but I live in the area, and we walk through the park almost every day. And we see a lot of what goes on. And, you know, the park is mostly for the kids and for families, but, you know, when you go to the park and it's trashed, I mean, what are you going to do? And not only that, I mean, they're partying, they're leaving needles. I mean, Little League is our season's going to start next Sunday. We can't have this. I mean, we can't have it no matter what, but we're going to have kids, 3, 4, 5-year-olds playing baseball in the park. Little kids like to pick things up, put them in their mouths. You know, things have just gotten out of control. As a whole, I mean, just in our city as a whole, I just feel things just slipping out of control. Just issue after issue. Just, number one, enforce the laws. And there's laws in the book, but they don't seem to be enforced. Everybody's passing the buck. Nobody's stepping up. That's how I feel. I think that's how everybody feels, right? Nobody's stepping up.
Sir, you have to
Right.
face me, sir.
Oh, no, I'm just, you know.
Okay.
But I think everybody feels the same way, that nobody's stepping up. And somebody needs to step up. And if it needs to be me, then let it be me. Somebody's got to step up. You know, whatever we got to do, whatever I got to do, get more involved, put our foot down, and not let these people come into the community and just take it over. You know, everybody out here is hardworking citizens. We have some retired citizens. They're tired of it. We're tired of it. Whatever we need to do as a community, we'll do it.
Okay, thank you for your offer.
All right. Thank you.
Joel, follow-up question. Since you were tracking social media postings, things like that, so we can anticipate if they're going to show up in one of our parks, what if we missed it somehow, and the residents notice that people are kind of trickling in with the symptoms that there might be an organized baseball game again? What can they do, or what should they do?
Well, again, we're going to be there for the next few Sundays already to account for that in advance.
No, after that. Let's say everything's been quiet for the next 2 months, 3 months, and then come January, they start to trickle in again.
Right, so
and they notice there's a pattern that these people are, for lack of a better word, they look like they're going to be playing baseball game again. So
Right.
what should they do?
Well, the message is clear now that the city is aware and the Sheriff's Department is aware that we have an issue here that can happen again. So there's increased sensitivities, you might say. So if there was to be evidence of it happening again, the phone call would still be to the sheriff, the first call, and explain what we have. People there will know that this is something that's important to Bellflower and important to the residents, and will have to respond they'll have to respond in a way that's commensurate with the problem level. And because this was fresh and new and weird, we weren't quite ready for it the first couple of times when it came, but we now have a plan in place and sensitivities and awareness in place that I think we can do a better job.
Okay. So, sir, in response to your question, so should that happen again, please be on the alert, call the Sheriff's Department. If you see a pattern that this may come up to be a baseball, an organized baseball game, please be on the lookout. That's where you can help. Okay? Anyone else who want to speak who has not spoken yet?
Good evening, Honorable Mr. Pro Tem and City Council, City staff. I'd just like to say my name is Robin Snow, and this is a wonderful city to live in, and we had an incident once, okay? This is a one-time thing that happened. I know that it's a hard thing for the people that live there to have this to happen to them, just like everybody else. This city gives us a lot, and then people come in and they destroy it. We get the bikes and people destroy it. We do things and people destroy it. So it's not something that our community may be doing or not, but our city council is a very good city council. Our sheriff's department is a very good sheriff's department, and by God, they are there to help us. And you know what? Think of the things that are going on in this community. They're wonderful things that are going on in this community, and we're all part of it. And you know what? Yes, people are going to come in and try and destroy it, and yes, we have to take a stance against it, and I believe that. But we also cannot rule judgment and say all these bad things because of one incident. It is a one-incident thing, or maybe it's been more than one incident, but it's not a trash our council and trash our sheriff's department night. I think that we should be proud of our city and what we do, and take care, okay? And yes, we can do something about it. We can stand up. And yes, you do have a voice in this community. So maybe we all need to get together and have a community meeting and talk about these things. Go back to Bellflower Against Gangs. Go back to having a community organization. If this is what it's going to take to get it to go, then let's do it. And thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to say something really quick. I've been up already. My name is Carla Mitchell. I want to make a suggestion. What we did. We had an issue on Bellflower in our cul-de-sac community, and we reached out. The abatement was taken care of. The sheriffs were out. I've even seen Officer Milliman driving down the street at 6 o'clock in the morning while I'm, getting ready for work. So they are out here working, and you might not see it. But one thing that I would like to suggest is to develop a neighborhood watch in your community, have a watch commander. Sacramento Ramos is in charge. Okay, great. So you're in touch with Sacramento Ramos already, and that's a good thing. I just want to say, just stay encouraged. And I don't know, Joe, this is a question for you. I heard a lot of people say.
Carla, ask the question.
I'm sorry. They got together in one house, and they were all calling the sheriff department. Is that ineffective, or is that non-effective?
Joe, can you respond to the question?
There were a whole bunch of calls registered, so it doesn't surprise me if it came from one house or two houses or whatever. Lots of calls. The sheriffs were there in and throughout the time, coming and going in some cases. And so it is the right thing to do. Again, we will be better prepared next time. So.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Come up.
Hello.
Hello.
My name
Good
is-
evening.
Good evening. My name is Eva Goncalves.
Is it your first time here?
Yes, it is.
You're
I'm
not
a little
nervous, though?
Yeah, I'm not nervous.
You're not good?
Okay.
All right.
My husband already spoke, and, we're not, what they just said, we're not here to bash you. I came from Long Beach. I don't know if I can say that, but I came from Long Beach. Me and my husband saved our money to come to a nice neighborhood, which we did. We bought a house
It's
in
an
Bellflower.
upgrade for you, right?
Yes, and we love it. But it's been 3 incidents, and what's scaring me and as a mom is that I came here because I'm concerned because I have children. They're older, but I have a little one. We were outside, and yes, I did get threatened. And yes, they did urinate on my property. You know, it's hard to say if you don't live there and it didn't happen to you. So I'm just here tonight asking you that you please, you know, thank you for all you do and everything and for being here and listening to me. But I am asking that you please put yourself on my shoes, and if this was your home and your children were out there and you went through this. So if you can just please, you know, just help us out.
Yes,
And I do appreciate everything
absolutely.
you guys do. Thank
Let me
you.
assure you that I felt your pain, as I said earlier. I have lots of friends in your area, so I got phone calls right away on
did.
Monday. So,
Yeah.
so I called the city manager right away.
Yeah.
And I was very pleased with their action plan. So let me assure you that we're doing our best. And I apologize for what had happened.
No, and I thank you for
It was
that.
a first-time
Appreciate it.
incident, and let's admit it, we were not ready for that kind of incident. But next time around, as Mr. Hoffman stated, we will be ready.
Okay, thank you so
Okay?
much.
So
Good.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members
Mr.
of council.
Snow, could
Bob
you sign in,
Snow,
please, so that, Mr. Snow?
I am a member of the Bellflower Parks
Bob,
and
can you
Recre-
sign in, please, so that
Oh, sure.
our city clerk
You don't
will-
know me, huh?
No, no, our city clerk,
Just kidding.
because she keeps track of the minutes. Your name is going to be mentioned in the minutes.
So if I just put down BS, you'll know who it is?
Don't remind me of that. Okay, that was a long time ago.
No, seriously, I mean, I am a member of the Bellflower Parks and Recs Commission, and I heard about this, and I'm sure it's going to be a discussion at our upcoming meeting. But, you know, my hope and prayer for this whole thing is that with this input from all of the people that were affected by it.
Bob, look at us.
I know, but-
You're on camera, you're on TV, so.
Okay. With all of the people that were affected by this, I am confident that we'll be putting together a collaboration that allows this problem to be rectified. If it ever happens again, it'll be rectified quickly. The Public Safety Department, the Parks and Rec Commission, and the Sheriff's Department are working together as a task force, I'm sure, to work on this. And I think we're in good hands, and hopefully it'll never happen again. And that's my prayer for tonight, by the way.
All right, thank you, Bob. All right, anyone else?
I have some comments, Mr.
Yes,
Mayor Pro
Mr.
Tem, if you
Mr.
don't mind.
Garza, please.
I appreciate the comments about our deputies, and we have fine men and women. I don't dispute that at all. But I do have to just, and I want to make sure that our lieutenant hears this. I'm very displeased with the fact that our residents had to tolerate this for 3 weekends in a row. No, hold on. I'm not trying to get applause here. Excuse me. I apologize, but it's very disappointing that for 3 weekends in a row that our residents had to endure this. So I appreciate the contingency plan, and I'm hopeful, and I'm expecting that this won't recur again. When we have incidences like this where somebody takes over, that's unacceptable. And to have units show up to the park and be visible but not address the situation, I don't know what it takes to address the situation. I don't know what level or scale it takes for there to be the mass force that we're hearing will come next time. I'm honestly beyond myself. I don't understand why it was tolerated. We wouldn't tolerate it. I wouldn't tolerate it in my neighborhood. And for us to ask our residents and to tell them, oh, we're sorry it happened, we'll handle it next time, I think, honestly, once, I get it. Twice, 3 weekends in a row, it's unacceptable. Honestly, it's unacceptable. So I expect better next time. I really do, because that's what we pay the Sheriff's Department for. That's what our city pays the Sheriff's Department for. And again, I don't understand it. I don't. So I'll end my comments by saying I expect better. I expect better. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Goops.
thank you for coming. When we received the call that you have had this experience, we were all sensitive to the fact how unusual this occurrence was, and that they chose our little town here to make a mockery of it, and we gave them a lot of rope to hang themselves. And so, You be vigilant, like was suggested earlier. When you see something, you guys know this park. Gentleman in the red hat, you said it. I walk that park all the time. If you see something that doesn't quite ring true, you call the Lakewood Sheriff, or if it's during the week, you call Bellflower Sheriff Station. Because we want to know as soon as possible so we can get some units over there. I share what Mr. Garza said. 3 weeks, and it seems to be getting worse each week. So they think they've got suckers now that they can go in and take advantage of. That's not acceptable. So when you see something, it sounds like it's a Sunday deal, it could be a Saturday deal. We may never see them again, and they move on to another place, hopefully, and another city can deal with them. That's terrible to wish that on anybody else. They came from somewhere, and now we find out that they're being funded by an organization to even provide them food and beverage so they can stay longer and urinate in your yards. I mean, it's just wrong. You know, our parks are a public asset. We need to be careful of their use. They're here for our constituents. If someone comes from another town, we can't say you can't be here, but we can certainly keep them from turning into a mob that's going to intimidate the neighborhood and take advantage of the situation. So we're going to be monitoring this. And you know where we are. And if 2 weeks from now we have our next meeting and something like this has come up again, I want you to come back in here. We're going to be watching it. You watch it too. But we feel as bad about it as you do. Know that. It's embarrassing, it's hurtful, and the only reason that we're up here is to make sure you feel safe. And as far as I'm concerned, we let you down. Nobody wants to live in a town where you don't feel safe. Don't care about the economics, don't care about how many parks, don't care how many crosswalks. You need to feel safe. And when you lose that ability to feel safe in your own house, that's terrible. And so as a council, you can hear what we say, that we are going to address this in the most serious way. We're not going to push it aside. I'm sorry that it took 3 weeks to get to this level. But we can do better, and we're going to be ready for them. But you guys are going to be our lookouts. We're going to be looking out, but you'll see it before we do. And we probably should have a code word or something that you report that, you know, how severe it is. But I know it takes a lot of nerve to come in here and make an announcement, and you've never been in city council before, and I applaud you for that. You expanded your horizons in a way that you probably never thought you would. And so let's do better. Let's take possession of our parks. Let's dwell on the positive, our car show, our good stuff, but we don't want to lose our community involvement. But I apologize to you folks. I feel bad that this has occurred. And we're going to stay on it, and hopefully they will not show up again. It's kind of like the plague. All of a sudden they're here. And yeah, I mean, we didn't realize that this was going down, that they choose communities to tear it up for an afternoon and then move on. And if they didn't get a lot of resistance, hey, let's go back and do it again. And that's where we're at now. So I think that if they come back, we'll be ready for them. But if we can hit them hard right away when they arrive, and we get some units in there and run them off, we'll all be better for it. Thank you.
Ron, you want to say something?
Well, I'm just shocked that this happened. All of the time and energy and resources, and I'm just shocked that this was able to happen. I look at Joel Hockman and I think, what happened? Where did it go off the rail? Where did it go wrong? What's the deal?
I think where it could have got a bigger response earlier, and I just don't think maybe that trigger was pulled. And next time we'll be more apt to get the units necessarily from the outside or from within and from without to deal with the problem. Now that we know we've got a bigger issue than originally thought. But it didn't go well. not making excuses for the past, only making plans for the future.
It's very, very disheartening. It's very sad. I mean, public safety is the one thing that we've always preached, that we've always guaranteed, and that we've always wanted. So I don't, I don't know. What do you say, Lieutenant? What do you think?
To my knowledge, the first time, we did take action immediately, and it was pretty much put down. And I'm not aware of how many complaints we got by the participants or the community. I don't believe there were any. That evening, I was actually working. The information I got was quite a bit different than what I'm hearing tonight. At shift change, I did speak to one citizen, and I realized that it amped up further than what was told to me prior in the evening. I had, from the very first call that I was aware of, we put Century, Norwalk, and Compton on standby, the response teams. So we were ready. I just never got the information to pull the trigger on it. So I don't know where the communication broke down on our end, because I wasn't hearing any of this that evening. And like Mr. Hockman said, I worked this past Sunday evening also, and we had nothing.
Okay.
Okay, well, it seems like the main issue was the communication within the Sheriff's Department. And I hope that they'll do a better job next time so that our residents will not have to endure this incident again. So on behalf of the City Council, we apologize for what had happened. We're truly sorry. And there are no excuses. It just happened. And the only thing we can assure you is that we will do, collectively, we'll do a better job next time around. So, but again, at the same time, I want to reiterate, please help us so that we can also help you, okay? And thank you for coming to this meeting. All right. If you want to stay on to the next agenda, you are welcome to stay on, but if you want to be on your way out, this is your opportunity to be excused. All right, thanks for coming. Thanks, Lizzie. Ready? Okay, moving along. We have one public hearing for this evening, item 11A. Mr. Stewart.
This is a public hearing. It's consideration of possible action to conduct a public hearing to consider the following actions. One, adopt urgency ordinance number 1361, and an urgency ordinance amending Chapter 17.48 of the Bellflower Municipal Code, BMC, regarding parking standards for public assembly uses in the town center, TC district. And two, read by title only, waive further reading, and introduce ordinance number 1362, an ordinance amending Chapter 17.48 of the Bellflower Municipal Code regarding parking standards for public assembly uses in the town center district. I believe we have Ms. Catherine Brune on here to make the staff report. Is
Ms. Brun, good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, not yet? Oh.
So Clerk tells me within 500 feet, and I can pick it out on the side. Is that what you understand? Okay. All right, so you'll have to announce it.
Are there any recusals?
Yes,
Okay. And
I have a
property,
discrepancy, yeah.
property within,
Just with Mr.
Schnablager.
We're all getting tired. His family has property within 500 feet of the affected area here.
Okay, Councilman Schnablager is recusing himself because he's got a property within 500 feet of this item, so. we need to wait him out.
So do I have to leave now?
Sorry, Ron.
This is getting to be a pain in the ass. Oh, sorry.
Is your mic off?
No, not now.
Not now.
All right, watch this step here.
Okay, not now.
All right. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Yeah.
The other way. No. The other way. All right. Ms. Brun, it's your turn.
Okay. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council. I have a short presentation for you this evening regarding urgency ordinance number 1361 and ordinance number 1362. These ordinances are to amend Chapter 17.48 of the Bellflower Municipal Code. This chapter covers Area 1 and 2 of the Town Center District, which is shown here. Town Center Area 1 is at the north end and Area 2 is at the south end. The amendments are regarding parking standards for public assembly uses, parking implementation criteria for all uses, and some housekeeping language cleanup. A little background on public assembly uses and parking in the TC district. Ordinance number 1208 was adopted by the City Council in 2011 and provided definitions, development standards, and performance standards relating to public assembly uses in the Town Center District. At that time, a provision was added that parking for public assembly uses must be located on the same property. Exempt from this requirement are public assembly uses that are located in the TC parking district. To clarify, the TC parking district is synonymous with the parking district number 1, which was established in 1960 and remains as the only parking district. Here is a map of parking district number 1. It's not inclusive of the whole TC district, as the name would imply. So as shown on this map, the boundaries of the parking district number 1 are west of the center line of Bellflower Boulevard, south of Main Street, and north of Flowers Street. So just these properties along this row. Let's go back. There are two existing overlay zones within the Town Center District, the Bellflower Village Overlay, also known as the BVOZ, and the BVOZN, the Bellflower Village Overlay Zone North. These overlay districts offer alternative development standards that are available exclusively for new development projects, but not projects that only involve tenant improvements. New development projects, including public assembly uses in the BVOZ and BVOZN, can propose to transfer their required on-site parking to public parking lots, subject to an agreement with the city. Additionally, resolution number 17-52, which was adopted by the City Council in 2017, established implementation criteria for projects located in the BVOZN that propose to transfer their required parking to public parking lots. These ordinances incorporate those same implementation criteria and applies them to all uses in the TC district wishing to utilize public parking lots to meet some or all of their on-site parking requirements. On August 6, 2018, the Planning Commission considered and recommended that the City Council adopt zoning ordinance text amendment case number 18-03. So some of the proposed amendments include allowing all public assembly uses in the TC district to propose to transfer their required parking spaces to public parking lots, subject to a covenant or a city council approved agreement. It also eliminates the requirement that off-site parking must be located within the TC district, thereby opening up additional public parking lots for use. Implementation criteria, similar to that found in Resolution 17-52, is also proposed to assist in the uniform application of the parking requirements. Staff will evaluate each request based on considerations such as ease of pedestrian access, reasonable distance, and a parking assessment report. This assessment report must include a parking assessment based on peak periods and a determination of available parking during peak periods, as well as requiring that all marketing materials for the proposed use provide maps that identify public parking lots. There is some additional cleanup. The parking fee assessed to public assembly uses in the parking district number 1 for any additional required parking spaces will now be correctly referenced as an in lieu fee instead of an impact fee. The term in lieu fee is a fee offered as an alternative to providing the required on-site parking. And finally, the term TC Parking District will be replaced with the correct name of Parking District Number 1. The effective dates, the urgency ordinance would take effect immediately while the, and would expire on October 25th, 2018. The second reading for the ordinance would be the next City Council meeting on September 24th, 2018, and would take effect 30 days following the final passage and adoption. Staff would like to go on record to make one correction to the proposed ordinances. On page 3 of 6 in ordinance number 1361 and page 2 of 5 in ordinance number 1362. For both of those, it would be section 5C. Line 2, the word that should be replaced with the word than. Our recommendation is that
Hold on about the correction. So
Yes.
it's on page 3 of 6 on ordinance 1361
yes.
and item C, right?
Yes, so it's the second line at the very top.
Okay,
The word, it's to read as if property is located within parking district number 1 and proposed public assembly, use requires more parking than the existing use, not that.
All
So
right.
it's the same in both the urgency ordinance and the ordinance, the same change.
got it, thank you.
Okay, yes. Oops, sorry. So staff recommends to open the public hearing, take testimonial and documentary evidence, and after considering the evidence, adopt urgency ordinance number 1361 by at least 4/5 vote. However, given that there's only 3 council members, it would need a unanimous vote of 3. This would take, urgency ordinance would take effect immediately. And also read by title only, waive further reading, and introduce ordinance number 1362, or alternatively, discuss and take other action related to this item. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council, if I could just add some additional comments on the presentation. One is that the urgency ordinance does not go away. The urgency ordinance becomes effective. There's no expiration date on the ordinance. It is the reason that you have 2 ordinances. One's an urgency ordinance, one's a regular ordinance. They both say the exact same thing. One just takes effect immediately. One takes effect 30 days after the adoption of the ordinance. They say the exact same thing. There's no expiration. The other item has to do with the vote. The government code states that it needs to be a 4/5 vote. Here you have one person that's recused. So you ordinarily, if Mr. Denton were here, if the mayor were here, it would still need to be a 3 out of 4 vote. So here you would need to have a unanimous vote in order to adopt the urgency ordinance.
I believe that Mr. Dunn would have recused himself too, right?
That I don't have in front of me.
Okay.
It's
All right.
probably the case, but in any event, you have a 3-member council at the moment, so it would need to be a unanimous vote with
So
regard to the
we cannot
urgency.
afford to lose a vote.
Correct.
All right. No pressure. And that's on the urgency, but on the ordinance, we could lose one.
On the
and still
regular
pass.
ordinance, that can pass on the 2-1.
All right, good. Question, can you bring back the slide towards the end, I think?
With the effective dates,
This one here.
amendments? Okay.
Okay. What is a reasonable distance? So what you're saying here is, so the applicant can basically use off-site parking within reasonable, what's a reasonable distance?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members
Yes.
of the council, perhaps I can supply that. It's
Sure,
whatever the council
absolutely.
thinks is reasonable.
So it's back to us.
It's a common sense approach to what reasonable means. Yes.
Okay. All right. The next question is, what is the value of the in lieu fee at this time?
The in lieu fee at this time is $15,000 per parking space.
$15,000, okay. And that's been established for quite some time, right?
That's been established since 2011.
11, okay. All right.
And I can also add that it's never been paid before. It's never been used.
No one paid for it. Okay. Now, so we are allowing these applicants now to basically transfer their parking requirements to the city? Correct?
It gives them the option and the possibility.
Okay.
So
It
they can
provides the
propose
option. It's meant as a mechanism to relieve the pressure of buildings and businesses adjacent to the town center parking district 1 and 2. It allows the city a mechanism to open new businesses and allow those businesses to park within the town center district.
Yeah.
Steelcraft, for
Right.
instance.
I understand
Yeah,
at
yeah.
this time because we're trying to encourage business to come to the city and we're still building our parking structure. So my question is more on the long-term point of view. So if we allow them to, let's say, transfer their requirements to the city and more are doing that, do we have a kind of a long-term solution in addition to our parking structure to address?
We
Because
believe-
at some point in time,
Yeah.
we will not have enough parking space to move this, to transfer these requirements
We're
to.
real close to it in District Number 1. I think with Steelcraft opening, with the the event center opening, together with Steelcraft and an event center event, a large event going on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that will pressure it into the overload capacity. We're very close, which is the reason we're trying to move forward with the parking structure. So we're right there. We're almost at filling the quart bottle of the quarts. So I don't know that there's going to be, I think we'd have to think hard about a significant development going in and adding more spaces in that particular area.
How about the library, the parking by the courthouse? We were negotiating that with the county.
No, we have access to the parking there. We have access there on the weekends and evening hours. And we are going to offload, and we believe that a portion of the parking demand met with this particular use on the Comedy Museum being discussed tonight at the other issue that's related to this. We believe that a portion of that demand is going to be met with valet parking, which will utilize that area.
Okay, so that can be part of the long-term parking
Yeah,
solution.
it is. And we're going to be integrating it more and more as this side of the downtown becomes more and more used.
Yeah. Okay, any question?
And if I may, Mr. Mayor
Yes,
Pro
Mr.
Tem and members of the council, remember that if the council decides to adopt these regulations, there's no guarantee that any applicant would actually be able to use the park. It's still within the city council's discretion in terms of whether or not to issue a license or a lease to allow that to happen. So related to this particular item is item 14G, which would allow that to happen for that particular establishment. So there is still an ultimate check on this arrangement that the city council can exercise if it chooses to, which is not to approve any lease agreement.
Mhm. They still have to go through the process anyway. Okay. All right. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Garza, seconded by Councilmember Coops, to open the public hearing. Without objection, that will be the order. Is there anyone here who would like to speak about this agenda item? Come on, it's parking. It's very exciting.
Good evening, council members.
Good evening, Anita. Can you sign in, please?
Yes. Oops. I guess I should sign so you can read it.
No, so you're in the minutes of the meeting. You don't know that. Your names are in the minutes.
I know, that's why I said I should
Okay.
sign it so she
All right.
can read it.
Okay, good.
Okay, so my question is, how is this going to, or is this going to alleviate some of the problems that some of the businesses are having? I mean, last meeting, you had two businesses that are losing thousands and thousands of dollars every month. Not to mention, you have people who live in here who can't park anywhere near their homes. Is this going to be better? Is it going to have no effect? Or is it going to make it worse for them?
Mr. Stewart?
Well, as far as the businesses that came in and discussed their parking situation last week, we're working on some remedies for that. Will this aid it? No, it won't aid it. It's additional business. Will it hurt it? I doubt it. I think that we have a plan worked out on the parking. This will do it. And we've identified some of the sources of problems in that parking lot that we're going to have to work on as well that are not necessarily related to the people frequenting those businesses. There's other issues there. So it's kind of like everything else, it's kind of a comprehensive, multi-pronged approach. We have some work to do on this. And as I explained to the council just a few minutes ago, I think that by design, when this business comes in, it pretty much fills up the available uses on this site, including the steel crap that comes in, and we're pretty close to the capacity that we can absorb there. And when the parking structure comes online in 10 months or so, it will be sorely wanted and needed at that point in time. So I think we're right on the edge of it.
So meanwhile, is it going to negatively impact
I don't think
the
so. I
people?
think that the comedy club is the type of business where they can use valet parking and utilize our excess parking that we have here at the parking structure and parking adjacent to the library there during the evening hours, that it won't negatively impact the parking in that area. I think we've got that worked out.
Okay, what about the people who live in the senior housing and in all those buildings?
Well, that's
Will it-
another entirely different problem that we'll have to work through.
But will that impact them in it being able to get in and out of their places,
No
especially
more-
seniors and disabled people?
No more than it does now. It should have no impact at all on the way they do business and the way they access their vehicles.
Okay, because it would be really detrimental to some people if all of a sudden they can't get in and out of their buildings when they're disabled especially.
Oh, no, it
But
won't.
even people who work, or even people who,
No.
you know, have to, now they're gonna, if there's a comedy club there and they come home from a evening out, they're gonna have to park 3 blocks or 4 blocks away in the middle of the night?
Oh, no. That will never happen.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
asking, is
No.
that going to be a possibility?
No, I mean, the comedy club, yeah, I don't think it'll have any impact on that whatsoever. Yeah.
All right, that's all I wanted to
Yeah,
know, thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Coops, seconded by Councilmember Garza to close the public hearing. Without objection, that will be the order. Okay, gentlemen, what's the pleasure?
Do we do these separately, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, or do we do them at the same time?
You can do it at the
Does it
same
matter?
time,
Same time? Okay, great.
as
So,
long as the votes are the same.
okay.
Okay.
I guess we'll
Don't
try it
wanna
out.
just split it up and do it again.
It could be different vote.
All right, so I'd like to move that we adopt urgency ordinance number 1361, and that we wait for the reading and introduce ordinance number 1362.
Second the motion.
Motion by Councilmember Garza, seconded by Councilmember Coops to adopt urgency ordinance 1361 and introduce ordinance 1362. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Coops?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Santinas?
Aye.
Councilmember Garza?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving along, there are no ordinances and resolutions for consideration. There are no, okay, that's, okay, consent calendar. Mr. Stewart.
It is the consent calendar. If the council wishes to pull something, ask questions, or ask additional consideration of an item, and now would be the time to make that known.
I will be conflicted out of 14C,
14C.
since I have property within the area there. 9220 Ramona is my property, and I'm too close to 9858 Artesia to be a participant.
Okay, 14C.
And Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to recuse myself from item 14H, as I am conflicted in that item, and I wasn't present at that meeting.
14H and 14C, okay. Would you like to pull any item?
I have none to pull.
Okay. Carla, is there anything that you would like to speak on?
Yes.
What item is that?
Item 14, I'm sorry.
Fourteen D. Okay.
Good evening again, all. My name's Carla Mitchell, and I had sent an email to Joe Hockman last week regarding the choice to use Southwest Patrol, Inc. When I think about our economics in our community and other businesses that are just like Southwest Patrol, I question why was Southwest Patrol the choice for security for our parks in the city of Bellflower, when we have a security company that, one, is right here in Bellflower, that hires, trains, and staffs off-duty police officers and others, veterans, et cetera. And there was no consideration to reach out to a local business. When we talk about growing together and our city's economics, I cannot understand why we were not reached out to locally. I have other colleagues that are right here in Downey or Paramount that have security businesses outside of mine that have been in business for 30-plus years. They were not reached out to either. Some of these companies have track records that have patrolled parks right in Downey, which are our neighboring cities, that have utilized security services in their parks and have found great results by using those. And I guess my main concern is our economics, and if we're supposed to be supporting businesses in our community, why aren't we reaching out to them to utilize services that?
Are you talking about your business or the other out-of-town
I'm saying
businesses?
my business
Okay, your
was-
business, I understand it's a local business, but as far as Downey and Paramount, makes no difference. I mean, it's not a local business for us. It's out of town.
Well, you just mentioned earlier that we're going to reach out to our neighboring cities for support.
LASD cities, where it's part of the contract of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department that in an emergency, that the deputies that are assigned to other cities will patrol Paramount, Bellflower and Paramount just like they would each other in an emergency situation. That's just part of their practice. These individual businesses in other cities, I understand you making your point about your local business in Bellflower. That's something we got to think through. In fact, I didn't think about it either, and we will in the future as we go forward on this. But if we're going to include other cities, I'm afraid I'm going to have to mute that argument a little bit and say it's no better or worse than using Southeast or any other patrol thing. But as far as your business goes, we will reach out to you and find this. And if there's an opportunity to keep it local in the future, we will try to keep it local in the future. And I get
Right.
that. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
and I thank you for that. I thank you for looking at that, because this business is based in San Diego, and they have a branch office in Diamond Bar.
From our perspective, Paramount and San Diego, same thing. Bellflower, different matter. We owe you,
Right.
I think we owe you a little more time in discussing what you could do for us on a local basis, and we'll give you that time, I promise you. But as far as San Diego and Paramount, I'm gonna have to cut you off at the knees there a little bit, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
One other question I do have before I walk away.
On the same item?
On the same item.
Okay.
Yes. Being that Southwest Patrol is in place and you're using them, so this is a temporary.
It's a pilot project.
It's a pilot
Yes. Mhm.
project, and it's temporary. Would this lead into something permanent for them, or
And
will there be a
that's my
RFP?
obligation to you. If this turns into a program that's gonna be regular, semi-regular, something in between, you and I need to have a discussion, and Joel and I, and you need to have a discussion on whether or not your company can help us, because I absolutely, and I think the council agrees as well, to the extent that we can keep it local, we need to do that.
Okay.
And that's something that actually, and I have to apologize to you, I didn't even think about that until just now, so I'm gonna do that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I guess to
Thank
answer your question, it could lead to that. But again, it's a pilot project, so it can go either way.
you. Right.
Okay.
So all I'm asking is for the opportunity to reach out to local business and at least put an RFP out so that we can bid on the project and actually have.
Yeah, it would be, I mean, it's a professional service. We don't need to have to do that, frankly. If you're coming in as a local business, we do try to find local business preferences in these things. If you can meet the service and the price is right, I mean, that's just something we can do in a professional service, and it's our obligation to find that out. So
Okay.
we'll be talking further.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.
Okay, Mr. Stewart, on this same item, at the last meeting when it was pulled, you mentioned about reaching out to JPIA. Have you done that?
Yeah, we did, and they came in at a couple, $3 million, and we said we have $4 million based on the umbrella, and they
No,
said
no,
that.
JPIA. Did you reach out to them?
Correct,
This-
yes, and they,
Okay, long story short, the standard stated by JPI is lower than the amount that we actually got through in coverage on this thing, so.
Okay, so
we'll
this
be clear.
this
Yeah.
arrangement is okay with them?
correct,
Okay.
yes.
All right, very good. Thank you. Any questions?
I just wanted to reiterate that this is a pilot project, so after this pilot period, we're going to bring it back, we're going to assess it, we're going to consider everything, including the insurance amount, the level of training we would want from these officers if we decided to move forward. So, and like the city manager said, at that point in time, if we decide, then we'll reach out. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Garza, second by Councilmember Coops, to approve the consent calendar with recusal from Councilmember Coops on 14C and Councilmember Garza on 14H. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Coops?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Santinas?
Aye.
Councilmember Garza?
Aye.
Okay. Councilmember comments. Councilmember Garza.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Just two comments. One is on the 28th of August, I know some members of staff attended the Bellflower Chambers initial monthly morning mingle. And I think everyone that was in attendance could attest that that was a really good beginning to a nice event. And so I'm encouraged by the direction of the chamber, and I look forward to future ones and hopefully members of the community being able to attend that. And then the last thing I wanted to do was I wanted to, I know she's here, and I wanted to officially welcome Ms. Tracy McSperrin, who's in the audience today. For those of you that don't know, she is our new Bellflower Unified School District Superintendent. So with that, congratulations, and I look forward to working with you in your new capacity and seeing the progress that we can make in our school district, and please count on me in any way that I could be of help with. So thank you for being here tonight, and for, again, congratulations.
Ms. McSparron, would you like to say a few words?
I have to let him get away with that. He's seen me grow up in this district over 23 years. I'm very proud to be the superintendent of schools for Bellflower Unified. And I have grown up in this district. I started as a teacher. I had Mr. Santin as his children in my classroom. And just one of the things I wanted to share this evening with the council member and council. And Mr. Coops, you may not know this, but you are famous right now. You are on a board, bulletin board at the district office. I've gone back to our roots in Bellflower Unified.
Oh.
This is not a notorious one. This is a good bulletin board. I'm going back to our roots of we build futures. And I believe that that's what we do in our school district. And I've challenged our school community to remember that everything they do every day is building a future not just for our students, but for themselves and for our community. And I really do look forward to seeing how we can work together and make this city a great place. And Mr. Coops is on the bulletin board because he is an alumni of our district. And what we did was we created a bulletin board that has kindergartners through sixth graders with their graduation year with a question mark. But underneath the slogan, "We build futures," we have some famous alumni and some not so famous alumni, but very important alumni. And some of those are teachers and counselors in our district. One is Josh Turner, who plays for the Dodgers, Ed Dixon, who plays for the Seahawks. But then for those of you who watch Eyewitness News 7, Annabelle Munoz just did last week a In the Neighborhood and came back and really thanked and showed what an impact this community has had on her. And so just thank you for all you do.
Okay, thank you. And as usual, we look forward to working with you to make our community better.
And I think you should be in the Hall of Fame, personally.
I'll vote for that. Okay. All right, Mr. Coops.
Well, you know, I'm always proud of the fact that 3 of the 5 of us up here are Bellflower High graduates. And I'm always proud of the fact that I attended Ramona School. I started there in 1956. I mean, that's not 1856.
Close enough.
You know, where does the time go? But I'm proud to be a product of our local schools. And I said it earlier when we were having dinner together. I said, you know, my life is not unlike the movie they play at Christmas time, It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. This is my Bedford Falls. I've never been anywhere. This is what I do. This is where my friends are, you know? So it's just a privilege to serve on the council and be a part of the count. And you came to a great meeting, Ms. Superintendent, to be able to see how much we're loved by the community. And anyway, I'm going to ask that we adjourn this meeting this evening in memory of Pastor John Edward DeYoung, that he was the pastor of Encounter Christian Church on Ramona Street. Pastor John DeYoung was born October 22nd, 1931 in Springfield, South Dakota. He passed away August 25th, 2018, at the age of 86. When John was about 12 years old, the family migrated west and settled in the South Bay area in LA County. And in 1951, he married his high school sweetheart, Dorothy Winfield. His father had high hopes that he would continue the family hardware business, which was located here in Bellflower, but John felt the calling of ministry serving him at various locations, including Prairie View Reformed Church in Kansas, Second Reformed Church in South Dakota, Mayfair Reformed Church in Lakewood, California, Park Hills Church in Baldwin Park, and Hope Reformed Church in Los Angeles. He also worked with a team of dedicated people to regularly minister to the Los Angeles Men's Central Jail, at Las Padrinos Juvenile Hall, and also he went to Chino State Prison to talk with prisoners. After his retirement in 2006, he began yet another chapter in his career by training to be a hospital chaplain. Serving at Long Beach Memorial Hospital, he served at Good Samaritan Hospital in Los Angeles and Little Company of Mary in Torrance, California, before finally retiring in 2013. John was preceded in death by his loving wife of over 65 years, Dorothy, his parents Morris and Jenny DeYoung, and sisters Gert Orr, Joanna Howe, Bernice DeYoung, as well as brother Aaron. He is survived by his children Kathleen, whose husband is Don, Deborah, whose husband is Stan, Dirk, whose wife is Lynn, and Jan. 13 grandchildren, 11 great-grandchildren, dozens of nieces and nephews. Our deepest sympathies and heartfelt condolences go out to the entire DeYoung family. No, I've got to tell you the personal note here is that this gentleman is my father-in-law's best friend from 8th grade on. And so my wife has always known, and I learned when I went to work at DeYoung Hardware. Now, do you ask where was DeYoung Hardware? That's where Doughboys is now located. That store started in 1946 after World War II, and it was started by this gentleman's father. He was very young at the time, so young that he went to college and became a pastor and worked there during the summer times. I went to work in that store in 1971, and when I was 20 years old, and because I was big enough to be able to haul a refrigerator up a stairway. That was the criteria for employment. I can still haul a refrigerator up a stairway. A strong back and a weak mind. But nevertheless, this family is important to Judy and I. We're going to miss them. Judy worked in the hardware section, and she worked for John, who was hired by her father's best friend, and that's where Judy and I met. And so I met Judy in that store in 1971. We married in 74. Been married 44 years. So even though the store is gone, I got a wife out of the deal. So that's the story of John DeYoung, who was a pastor and a good friend and an important part of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coops. I just want a couple of comments regarding parking. I just want to kind of remind you that this is part of growing pains. We're going to endure more parking issues in the next few months, especially once the construction of the parking structure starts and then Steelcraft comes in. So there's going to be lots of issues about parking. So please bear with us. It's part of construction. So we're making the city better. And in addition to that, once we start construction of the widening of the Bellflower Boulevard south of the freeway, again, there's going to be more pressure on traffic in that area. It could be worse than what it is now. So please be mindful. If you can avoid that area during the construction, please do so. But look at the long-term impact of these things. This will be a major impact in the city of Bellflower. The second thing I want to point out is, although the temperature has been cooling down lately, I will remind you that we're still not out of the woods yet in terms of mosquitoes. We're so fortunate that there's not a lot of incidents in terms of mosquito sightings in the city of Bellflower compared to other areas within the southeast LA County. But please be on the lookout for any standing water in your backyard. That is the key. Any standing water that's been sitting there for quite a while, mosquitoes breed there. So please be on the lookout and get rid of those standing water. So we're adjourning tonight's meeting in memory of Pastor John DeYoung to the next regular meeting of the Bellflower City Council at 5:30 p.m. on Monday, September 24, 2018. This meeting is adjourned. Okay. Oh, thank you, sir.
For you to chair.
Oh, my God.